Introduction by Raymond Hall. As an author and journalist, I have had exceptional opportunities to study the workings of civilized society. I have investigated and written about government, industry, business, education and the arts. I have talked to, and listened carefully to, members of many trades and professions, people of lofty, middling and lowly stations. I have noticed that, with few exceptions, men bungle their affairs. Everywhere I see incompetence rampant, incompetence triumphant. I have seen a 3/4-mile long highway bridge collapse and fall into the sea because, despite checks and double checks, someone had botched the design of a supporting pier. I have seen town planners supervising the development of a city on the flood plain of a great river, where it is certain to be periodically inundated. Lately I read about the collapse of 3 giant cooling towers at a British power station. They cost $1 million each, but were not strong enough to withstand a good blow of wind. I noted with interest that the indoor baseball stadium at Houston, Texas, was found on completion to be peculiarly ill-suited to baseball. On bright days, fielders could not see fly balls against the glare of the skylights. I observed that appliance manufacturers, as regular policy, establish regional service depots in the expectation, justified by experience, that many of their machines will break down during the warranty period. Having listened to umpteen motorists' complaints about faults in their new cars, I was not surprised to learn that roughly 1/5 of the automobiles produced by major manufacturers in recent years have been found to contain potentially dangerous production defects. Please do not assume that I am a jaundiced ultra-conservative, crying down contemporary men and things just because they are contemporary. Incompetence knows no barriers of time or place. Macaulay gives a picture, drawn from a report by Samuel Pepys, of the British Navy in 1684. The naval administration was a prodigy of wastefulness, corruption, ignorance, and indolence. No estimate could be trusted. No contract was performed. No check was enforced. Some of the new men of war were so rotten that, unless speedily repaired, they would go down at their moorings. The sailors were paid with so little punctuality that they were glad to find some usurer who would purchase their tickets at 40% discount. Most of the ships which were afloat were commanded by men who had not been bred to the sea. Wellington, examining the roster of officers assigned to him for the 1810 campaign in Portugal, said, "I only hope that when the enemy reads the list of their names, he trembles as I do." Civil War General Richard Taylor, speaking of the Battle of the 7 Days, remarked, "Confederate commanders knew no more about the topography within a day's march of the city of Richmond than they did about Central Africa." Robert E. Lee once complained bitterly, "I cannot have my orders carried out." For most of World War II the British armed forces fought with explosives much inferior, weight for weight, to those in German shells and bombs. Early in 1940, British scientists knew that the cheap, simple addition of a little powdered aluminum would double the power of existing explosives, yet the knowledge was not applied till late in 1943. In the same war, the Australian commander of a hospital ship checked the vase cell's water tanks after a refit and found them painted inside with red lead. It would have poisoned every man aboard. These things, and hundreds more like them, I have seen and read about and heard about. I have accepted the universality of incompetence. I have stopped being surprised when a moon rocket fails to get off the ground because something is forgotten, something breaks, something doesn't work, or something explodes prematurely. I am no longer amazed to observe that a government-employed marriage counselor is a homosexual. I now expect that statesmen will prove incompetent to fulfill their campaign pledges. I assume that if they do anything, it will probably be to carry out the pledges of their opponents. This incompetence would be annoying enough if it were confined to public works, politics, space travel and such vast, remote fields of human endeavor. But it is not. It is close at hand, too, an ever-present, pestiferous nuisance. As I write this page, the woman in the next apartment is talking on the telephone. I can hear every word she says. It is 10 p.m. and the man in the apartment on the other side of me has gone to bed early with a cold. I hear his intermittent cough. When he turns on his bed I hear the springs squeak. I don't live in a cheap rooming house, this is an expensive, modern, concrete high-rise apartment block. What's the matter with the people who designed and built it? The other day a friend of mine bought a hacksaw, took it home and began to cut an iron bolt. At his second stroke, the saw blade snapped, and the adjustable joint of the frame broke so that it could not be used again. Last week I wanted to use a tape recorder on the stage of a new high school auditorium. I could get no power for the machine. The building engineer told me that, in a year's occupancy, he had been unable to find a switch that would turn on current in the bass plugs on stage. He was beginning to think they were not wired up at all. This morning I set out to buy a desk lamp. In a large furniture and appliance store I found a lamp that I liked. The salesman was going to wrap it, but I asked him to test it first. I'm getting cautious nowadays. He was obviously unused to testing electrical equipment, because it took him a long time to find a socket. Eventually he plugged the lamp in, then could not switch it on. He tried another lamp of the same style, that would not switch on, either. The whole consignment had defective switches. I left. I recently ordered 600 square feet of fiberglass insulation for a cottage I am renovating. I stood over the clerk at the order desk to make sure she got the quantity right. In vain. The building supply firm billed me for 700 square feet, and delivered 900 square feet. Education, often touted as a cure for all ills, is apparently no cure for incompetence. Incompetence runs riot in the halls of education. One high school graduate and 3 cannot read at normal 5th grade level. It is now commonplace for colleges to be giving reading lessons to freshmen. In some colleges, 20% of freshmen cannot read well enough to understand their textbooks. I receive mail from a large university. 15 months ago I changed my address. I sent the usual notice to the university, my mail kept going to the old address. After 2 more change of address notices and a phone call, I made a personal visit. I pointed with my finger to the wrong address in their records, dictated the new address and watched a secretary take it down. The mail still went to the old address. 2 days ago there was a new development. I received a phone call from the woman who had succeeded me in my old apartment and who, of course, had been receiving my mail from the university. She herself has just moved again, and my mail from the university has now started going to her new address. As I said, I became resigned to this omnipresent incompetence. Yet I thought that, if only its cause could be discovered, then a cure might be found. So I began asking questions. I heard plenty of theories. A banker blamed the schools, kids nowadays don't learn efficient work habits. A teacher blamed politicians, with such inefficiency at the seat of government, what can you expect from citizens? Besides, they resist our legitimate demands for adequate education budgets. If only we could get a computer in every school. An atheist blamed the churches, drugging the people's minds with fables of a better world, and distracting them from practicalities. A churchman blamed radio, television and movies. Many distractions of modern life have drawn people away from the moral teachings of the church. A trade unionist blamed management. Too greedy to pay a living wage. A man can't take any interest in his job on this starvation pay. A manager blamed unions, the worker just doesn't care nowadays, thinks of nothing but raises, vacations and retirement pensions. An individualist said that welfare statism produces a general don't care attitude. A social worker told me that moral laxity in the home and family breakdown produces irresponsibility on the job. A psychologist said that early repression of sexual impulses causes a subconscious desire to fail, as atonement for guilt feelings. A philosopher said, men are human, accidents will happen. A multitude of different explanations is as bad as no explanation at all. I began to feel that I would never understand incompetence. Then one evening, in a theater lobby, during the second intermission of a dully performed play, I was grumbling about incompetent actors and directors, and got into conversation with Dr. Lawrence J. Peter, a scientist who had devoted many years to the study of incompetence. The intermission was too short for him to do more than whet my curiosity. After the show I went to his home and sat till 3 a.m. listening to his lucid, startlingly original exposition of a theory that at last answered my question, why incompetence? Dr. Peter exonerated Adam, agitators and accident, and arraigned one feature of our society as the perpetrator and rewarder of incompetence. Incompetence explained. My mind flamed at the thought. Perhaps the next step might be incompetence eradicated. With characteristic modesty, Dr. Peter had so far been satisfied to discuss his discovery with a few friends and colleagues and give an occasional lecture on his research. His vast collection of incompetenciana, his brilliant galaxy of incompetence theories and formulae, had never appeared in print. Possibly my principle could benefit mankind, said Peter, but I'm frantically busy with routine teaching and the associated paperwork. Then there are faculty committee meetings, and my continuing research. Someday I may sort out the material and arrange it for publication, but for the next 10 or 15 years I simply won't have time. I stressed the danger of procrastination, and at last Dr. Peter agreed to a collaboration. He would place his extensive research reports and huge manuscript at my disposal. I would condense them into a book. The following pages present Professor Peter's explanation of his principle, the most penetrating social and psychological discovery of the century. Dare you read it? Dare you face, in one blinding revelation, the reason why schools do not bestow wisdom, why governments cannot maintain order, why courts do not dispense justice, why prosperity fails to produce happiness, why utopian plans never generate utopias? Do not decide lightly. The decision to read on is irrevocable. If you read, you can never regain your present state of blissful ignorance. You will never again unthinkingly venerate your superiors or dominate your subordinates. Never. The Peter principle, once heard, cannot be forgotten. What have you to gain by reading on? By conquering incompetence in yourself. And by understanding incompetence in others, you can do your own work more easily, gain promotion and make more money. You can avoid painful illnesses. You can become a leader of men. You can enjoy your leisure. You can gratify your friends, confound your enemies, impress your children and enrich and revitalize your marriage. This knowledge, in short, will revolutionize your life, perhaps save it. So, if you have courage, read on, mark, memorize and apply the Peter principle.